Welcome to Chamber Exchange, a TV show. My name is Tim Murray. Chamber Exchange, a TV show, is a dialogue, a conversation with you, our viewers, as well as important leaders in the business community, in the neighborhoods, and in government to talk about what we can do collectively together in making Central Massachusetts and the city of Worcester a positive place to do business and grow jobs. And my guest today is somebody who's done that in a couple of different capacities. And I want to welcome Paul Hanlon, the CEO of BlueHive, to the show. And Paul, just before we start, probably about 6 months ago, maybe it was, we had a segment specifically talking about manufacturing, and a BlueHive employee came in and talked about how what BlueHive does touches on manufacturing in a way. But I wanted to maybe start our conversation a little bit about with, you as an entrepreneur starting BlueHive, but even prior to BlueHive, a very successful company in Worcester that you started at a fairly young age with some help with the city Folio.
That's correct. I owe my success to the city that has supported me. When I was 27 years old, I started a small exhibit design firm called Folio Exhibits. Our first facility was not too far from the studio. We grew the company through a lot of hard work and push, but when it came time for some real growth, I actually went to the city and said, I have an opportunity to buy a building, which was up at the Airport Industrial Park. And I asked for a TIF. Back in the day, I didn't quite understand it, but I just said, if you could lower my cost to operate, I promise I'll hire and grow. And they did, and I owe it all to them.
And you hired, you grew, you were very successful so that you became an attractive company for a bigger one to acquire.
Yeah, I was never expected to be sold at the time, but apparently I grew the company to a point where the name was synonymous with success and excellence. So a bunch of venture capital guys knocked on my door and said, we'd like very much to buy your company. I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not for sale. Then they offered me X amount of dollars and I was for sale.
Right, right. So let me just ask you, in terms of you're back bigger, better than before, but certainly with some experience. But BlueHive does some similar work with Folio. But just again for our viewers, I mentioned some elements of manufacturing, but design. Could you just walk through what BlueHive does?
Well, what happened first, when I sold Folio, it was primarily design and build of exhibits and marketing materials. In 2005, after years of retirement, some of my old employees came down to Florida to meet with me and said, Paul, if you'd start your business back up again, we'll work for you again. They are the ones that came together with the idea of the company named BlueHive, primarily again back in the trade show exhibits. I said, fine. As a little venture capital, I started off in Millbury, and again, the company just grew because primarily I was hiring back my old employees, so there was a lot of it was a bond, but also a lot of trust. Mm-hmm. The main goal at the time was nothing but trade show exhibits. But when the economy went south...
And for our viewers who may not be familiar with a trade show...
Well, if you were to go to a home show to look for a plumbing fixture company or a fence company, we'll take that and then multiply it by 1,000, because a lot of our companies are medical device companies, or your Microsoft, if you will, out there. So they're very large companies that market themselves across the country and around the world.
I never really kind of fully appreciated until getting on the council and then as mayor and even as lieutenant governor, you go to some of these trade shows, whether it be at the DCU Center or the Boston Convention Exhibition Center, literally every company, whether it's a pharmaceutical company or a restaurant, if they want to market and show a sense of what they're doing, they've got to create like a little mini experience, right?
You're competing like people compete in Vegas for attention. And what you need to do is you find the right firm, such as us, to design an attractive model that gets people into your booth so they have a limited amount of time to talk to somebody, to market the product so that they can go away leaving the trade show with a favorable impression of the companies they've met. And that's our goal.
And design and build it.
Design, build, storage, and manage and set up around the country.
And so, as you've grown, back with BlueHive, and I think the name is a great name. Just the view, it's a combination of blue and hive.
Well, it was a little, marketing again. The blue, as they say, is the color of creativity. We can argue that. I don't know. The hive, however, the hive is the classic example of management and construction. From the outside in, it looks like chaos, but from the inside out, it's controlled chaos. Much like our business. If you don't know what we're doing, we look like we don't know what we're doing. But from inside the building, we have everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we create the name, to play with it, plus we also love to say we make a buzz in the industry. Our clients have come to a point where when they come to the facility, they tell us we're coming to visit the Hive. So it's just a lot of fun.
And so as you've come back and reestablished the company and some of the concepts, you mentioned you've had to diversify and do a few things different. What are those?
Well, when the economy contracted, I realized I wanted to keep the company growing. I came back from Florida full time, and I ended up buying 2 other companies that were in the millwork side of the business, high-end and middle millwork. Because at the end of the day, we produce products that companies want. Whether it's we just built out the Chestnut Hill movie theater and Davios restaurant. We opened up 5 restaurants in New York City at the Gotham Market. So we're still doing exhibits. We're doing a $1 million project at a hospital in New York City, outfitting their offices.
Right. And so for our viewers, I mean, President Obama was just here in Worcester to celebrate our Worcester Technical High School, and part of one of the programs that they run is the carpentry. But millwork is really advanced high-end carpentry that's combined with design and computer-aided skills.
I'm telling you what, we just purchased a huge program called Microvellum that I wish I could explain it to you. But I mean, it gets fed into the system, it gets sent out to our computer-aided CNC machines, and the machine just comes out and cuts. As it leaves the board, it gets labeled. So every piece goes out as if it was a piece of steel, and then gets saved in our servers. So we're looking at such that school that comes at not just cutting wood, but can implement
operating the CNC machine, how to refine it, tweak it, change it, all of those things.
Yep.
So, we're gonna just a few minutes left in this segment, but company back up, started in Millbury, and then you ended up kind of back in Worcester in the same neighborhood where Folio was.
Well, oddly enough, where I am is the building I purchased, which I got the TIF from, but when I sold, my original company Folio moved to Northborough. They then sublet it to another tenant. So I'm basically a landlord with my own building. So as my company grew in Millbury, it got to the point where then as things happened, my tenant wanted to move out. So I made a deal. They moved out, and I was able to move my own company into my own building. So I'm now my own landlord. That make sense?
It does. It does. It does when you're the boss. Paul, when we left for our first segment to break, we were talking about location, and we talked about how as you started BlueHive and grew it, a new company from Millbury, you ended up back in your location at the Airport Industrial Park and Goddard Memorial Drive here in Worcester. What is it about that location that you chose when you created Folio, in addition to the TIF that you got from the city? But what are the pluses and minuses of that location?
Well, when I got the location, I wasn't schooled enough to know why. It was just available. The city helped me out greatly, and I realized this is a place I can start to grow something. But as time has gone on, especially expanding my business, and I now can attract talent from Framingham and Natick, Providence, and Hartford, because at the end of the day, they're only an hour away. When it comes to flying in clients, because our client base is from Oregon, Florida, California, we can fly them in depending upon their flight schedules from Boston, Hartford, or Providence. And it's just
hopefully we get some additional
and actually from Worcester,
flights from JetBlue.
Yeah, I agree with you. If there's more activity, I mean, there's an attraction to it.
Yeah.
There just is. But that's all by luck. I mean, I'm just very fortunate.
Right. Well, hard work and good timing, and a little bit of luck make things work. One of the things, we talked about how the components of yours is creativity, design, it's millwork, which is a form of high-end carpentry. You've got manufacturing, and the people need to know how to run the machines. Approximately how many people are working for BlueHive?
I'm sorry. We have about 92 people currently in there, but they're diverse from engineers, craftsmen, designers, graphic design.
And so really, it's a unique kind of blend of not kind of your typical work setting.
We can absolutely do anything. We just, for the 100-year anniversary of Worcester Country Club, we just built out a brand new bar and restaurant for them.
Right. And so let me ask you, I mean, you're helping companies, market by their appearances, doing the trade show, but clearly branching out and doing high-end work for restaurants, hotels, a whole variety of different things. How do you market yourself? How do you get out and show what you do?
Actually, it is a bit of a challenge because it's like, we've separated the companies. I have Continental Woodworking, I have BlueHive, so we're trying to make certain that we don't blend too much to confuse people. So if we have high-end millwork, we'll send them to Continental's website, but primarily still under one facility. But it's all word of mouth. 80% of it's word of mouth. It's someone knowing when anybody wants to buy a product, at the end of the day, they want to buy a product that they feel safe with. In our particular world, when we're building something, we're the last people in and the first people to be blamed.
Right,
Nobody looks at what else happened, what the decisions, all they know is what they see. And when they realize someone has chosen us, our promise to the employee who's chosen us, that they won't be fired, that they're going to be able to look good in front of their bosses, and we're going to live up to all our promises. And so there's just that word of mouth is real, it opens up a lot of doors.
Right. You know, Paul, one of the things we're really trying to promote at the Chamber and just get all of our partner organizations, the city and others, our educational partners at the higher ed level, but even kids at a young age while they're in school, is to think about the idea of opening their own business and not being afraid of that, and encouraging that, and mentoring young people or people who maybe leave one career and want to go into another to pursue an idea or a dream. How did you get into Folio, and what kind of led you to say, I'm going to start my own company?
The desire to feed myself, because I had nowhere else to go. I got to a point where I realized I started as a salesman. I was going to be pushed out of where I was working, so I offered to buy the product I was selling. They said, sure, buy it. I bought it from a company at 27 years old for $47,000. Started off in the back of a warehouse in a 20 by 20 room, and I realized if I didn't make this a go, I was in sort of trouble. But I will tell you the difference between success and failure in any sport or any business endeavor is you have to find your edge. I've always broken the word as an acronym. EDGE stood for energy, dreams, goals, and ethics. I worked harder than anybody. I had a dream. I set my goals in writing, and I always shot straight. So in hindsight, I look back on that and say, that's how I did it. And that's what if I had the opportunity to talk to young adults, that's the one thing I'd push.
Right.
Because so often you can't necessarily find that in your surrounding communities, but you can find it within inside yourself.
Right, right. Well, you mentioned put it in writing. I mean, almost a business plan, putting goals and objectives down.
The power of your subconscious is if you can put something in writing of where you would like to be in 5 years, and you limit it to maybe 5 goals, so you can't overdo it, you're going to find that your subconscious is going to work for you. Because the building I bought in Worcester was something I had put down in writing 5 years earlier, owning my own property because I wanted to control my own destiny, having no idea that I would find it someday. So when the opportunity showed itself, I remember looking into my own wallet, because I always stuck it behind my license, and said, I'm doing it.
Right, right.
I just checked it off and stuck my goals in my wallet again and kept moving.
Well, Paul, I think that's a great story, one that I wasn't aware of, prior to the show, and just, and I think it's important for our viewers who have that idea, what you just described, that let them know that there's some, resources out to kind of help people with that. Locally at the Chamber, we partner with SCORE, which retired business executives who will mentor and sit down with somebody who's thinking about starting a business and helping them put it in writing, put together a business plan. We're lucky also in Worcester to have at Clark University the Small Business Assistance Center, which will do similar type of work and also work on things like financing. So if you're out there and you've got an idea, if you're a young person or somebody in Paul's situation thinking about doing your own thing, there are resources and help out there, but you got to still have that motivation and willingness, right?
Oh, you have to believe in yourself when nobody else does.
All right. And one thing that you hear from entrepreneurs who've been successful, can't be afraid of failure. And if a company doesn't work, I mean, sometimes that happens. Get back on the horse.
I'd love you, if you were in my office today, I'd love to have you invite you take a look. Behind my desk is a picture of a boxer getting up.
Yeah.
I've had it behind me since 1982. It's one thing to be knocked down, but I've always said I've never laid down.
Yeah, yeah.
Pick yourself back up.
That's great. Well, on those lines, where do you see the future of BlueHive and Continental Woodwork?
Yep. It's actually really, it's unlimited. It's unlimited to a point where it's almost a little scary because I have to dial it back a little bit and stay a little focused, because we really can go anywhere, absolutely anywhere. There's nothing I can't produce, nothing I can't design. So that in itself is a problem and a challenge, to keep the people focused on here's what we do best, even though we can do everything. So growth doesn't necessarily mean success. And
you mentioned Oregon, obviously in the West Coast, but your clients, your work across the country?
Across the country. I mean, we're in Vienna setting up trade show exhibits for a customer that's out of Kansas City.
Wow.
People go to those people they can trust.
Right. And so we'll end on a fun note. This has been great. We talked about the name BlueHive, but you also have a mascot.
Buzz.
Buzz. A little
Buzz,
big-
a little doll. Buzz doll.
Buzz doll, little Buzz name. So if you're looking, maybe we can get a little retail business selling Buzz dolls. Well, Paul, it's been great having you. Look forward to coming up and visiting. But I did a great success story and a great Worcester company, and we appreciate more good news coming.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for being
much.
with us.